Okay, once you cut those three pieces, they're all the same length. The next thing you need to do is hand sand them. So you can just go take a piece of scrap sandpaper and you're just going to sand with the grain. Alright, take your sandpaper, wrap it around it, or do something like this, and you want to sand all three pieces. I would say if you spend 5 minutes on this piece, 5 on this one, for a total of 15 minutes hand sanding, you probably should be alright. You should get rid of most of your scratches if you're pressing pretty hard and you do over the whole thing. I think the one thing you need to look for is a lot of people will do towards the middles and they'll kind of forget to do the ends. Make sure you do the, sand the outside edge. Don't just sand right here in the middle and that's it. Then once you get that all sanded, the next thing is to put it together. Now, with all my demos I've been doing for you guys, I just did the small end. So I did a small end this hour and I did a small end next hour. I don't have a big end. If you had a big end, obviously it would look a little differently, but it's the same concept. So you've got, let's say, your small end, your big end, your slider, your couple pieces there. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to want to put the dowels into either the big end or the small end. One thing I would do is I would grab a couple pieces of scrap wood and then I would put those pieces of scrap wood into the vise like this. And then I would stick the dowel in between it. And the reason I would do that is rather than just sticking the dowel in the vise, you just sanded it and get it all dented up. Put it in between a couple pieces of scrap wood and it's less likely to get dented. Take yourself a screw and you put it in like that. The drill should be set at 4. If you crank it up, it's going to end up stripping it out. You want it at 4. You put it in, pull the trigger a couple times like that, and when it makes that noise, it's tight. If you go any farther than that, it will strip it out and you don't want that. So I've got one piece in. I come in here and I do the next piece. Put that in. Should fit in. This part should be probably the easiest part, getting these first 3 screws in. It's getting the next 3 screws in. It can be a little bit tricky for some people if your holes don't line up. If your holes don't line up, I can sometimes help force them to line up, but then your slider won't work as well as it probably should. Right there. So, we got those 3 pieces in place. Then, put your slider on. It shouldn't matter which way you put your slider on. You just need to get the holes, hopefully, to line up somewhat. And you can get your slider on, something like that. Then, you take your big end or your small end or whatever you've got left, and you kind of just try to get the holes to fit into place, just like that. If they fit in that easy, you must have drilled your holes pretty close to the correct spot. Take your screws. If you have it set at 4, you'll hear that noise. If you have it set at 20, you won't hear that noise. You'll just strip it out and then you'll ask me to try to fix it and I won't be able to fix it. Alright, that is basically put together. Now, when I set mine down, it sits flat on the table. It's exactly how you want it. The slider is up about 1/2 inch so that it can slide. It slides relatively easy from one end to the other. It's not going to slide perfect, but if you can slide it from one end to the other, like that, you did it pretty close to as well as you can have it. Alright, so it should slide from one end to the other if your holes all are lined up. Some people might only get slide from here to there. It just kind of depends on how well they did it. The last thing as far as assembly goes is getting your chair buttons on. You might need, I don't know, a hammer for something like this. You might not need a hammer either. It just kind of depends on how well your holes go together. I will probably need a hammer, that's my guess. You take some glue, and you don't need a ton of it, just enough. Cover the bottom of the chair button, put that on right there, and then what I would do is grab a piece of scrap wood again, and put that right in, and you can see how nice that looks right there. You do the same thing 2 more times, 3 more times, and then your thing is completely assembled. The last thing we would have to do is stain it, and we'll do that next week, as well as put a clear coat of finish on it. One thing I will say, if you put yours down and it doesn't sit as nice as mine, sometimes if you just twist it, like there I just twisted it and now this side sticks up. If that was sticking up, I could just twist it and I should be able to get it to go straight. It's just kind of twisting those screws into place.